So the astrology of the week of 21 June 2021 to 27 June 2021, it brings us to Cancer Ingress, this very charged and difficult, really, Cancer Ingress, but there's a lot of mixed testimony in this chart. There's some great things about it. After that Cancer Ingress early in the week, we get the full moon in Capricorn, which is often discombobulating and uncomfortable because the moon there is in an exiled condition, but it marks these extremes of the season, these extremes of the weather in both hemispheres. And I just want to remember here, discomfort is that necessary condition for growth and for adjustment and for movement. And that's one of the biggest themes this week, an opportunity to feel strange, but then to act different and to incorporate those difficult feelings into movement forward. So let's jump into the charts. Let's jump into the week here. And yeah, I just want to say to kick it off here, there's a lot this week. It's heavy duty. There's a bunch of slides here. Just to do full coverage, my normal coverage, I've got a lot here to go through. So I'm going to try to move somewhat quickly. I know my videos lately have extended, gotten a little longer, and it's fine. I want to give the coverage. I want to include all of the ideas that I feel are important. But at the same time, I know your time's valuable, and so I want to kind of be efficient here as I move quickly. Somewhat quickly, but maybe with full coverage. It's probably me, because with this new style, I'm doing it now, but this new style, you know, I tend to maybe go on tangents or anecdotes. These are things I've probably edited out at different times on my channel. It's just more of a loose model here. So I'll try to stay on topic. So let's move here. As always, I like to jump in first with the traditional planets, the 7 planets. I like to look at sign changes, stations, retrograde or direct stations, and then the aspects that are perfecting between those non-moon traditional planets. Because the moon moves so fast, there's so many aspects to look at. I do a moon analysis, as you all know, a little bit different. But this is first those 6 traditional planets and their sign changes and aspects and direct and stations. This week, there's just so much happening. I mean, we've got the Cancer Ingress of the sun, which is very important for mundane astrologers. We're going to look at that chart in depth in this talk, but it kicks off the summer. This is one definition. There's different definitions of when summer begins, but this is one that I think most people, or a lot of people, like. When the sun ingresses into the sign of Cancer, the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. Here where I am, 5 in the morning, it's bright out. You know, 4 in the morning, it's bright out. Maybe not 4, but very early. And I'm higher up on like the 40th parallel, I think, something like that. But you get a lot of light right now, and that's because this is the longest day of the year in the northern hemisphere, shortest day of the year there in the southern hemisphere, folks. Trying to always keep in mind, being an astrologer has helped me understand that there's a whole nother hemisphere down there that's opposite, and that's an important part of our reality. So I'm going to try to include you all as much as possible. But either way, north or south, we're initiating a new season, and this is that shift, that climactic shift where we're now reversing from this point on. So it's a kind of a celebration in a way of the fullness of life, of the, you know, the sun. You know, in this part of the world, maybe Northern Europe, you have midsummer. That holiday, there's a movie that came out about that, a really excellent horror film that's about those celebrations around this moment where you can enjoy the sun as it's out so often. And in the other hemisphere, you know, it's the coldest day, so you're birthing. There's a birth here that's no matter where you are, and it's a shift. I have here written shifts. It's initiation of the new season. That's why these are cardinal signs. It's initiation. Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, Libra. These are initiations where there's a shift of our how the sun is received in our reality. It's either getting longer or shorter, or it's the longest or shortest day. So Let me see here. So that's right away. This happens very, very soon. It's actually less than 24 hours from my recording here. It's okay though, because this chart, the thing about it is it can be a chart for the next 3 months. And so we'll have time, even if you're watching this video after the Cancer Ingress, this chart is important for the next 3 months and for the week and just for the energies and the tonality of the astrology. I also want to point out that on, Wednesday, Mercury does begin to station direct, and this happens after Jupiter's direct station, which as I'm recording this hasn't quite happened yet. I think it's a few hours here, 6 hours or so. Jupiter will then station retrograde, but then, so in that sense, there may be some, there's a whole story there that I talked about in the video last week, and I did tweet about that, like I said I would. Some very interesting fixed star conjunctions. Maybe I'll just mention that here. This Jupiter, it's stationing right on a fixed star, Enif, that is in the Pegasus constellation, right in that nose area of the Pegasus. And there's this idea of this overexuberance, of getting too excited. And I'm going to talk about that in this video, but thematically it connects. I think we're in a time in the collective psyche where it's new footing. We're coming out of a trauma period with all the events of 2020 and the collective shutdowns and the strangeness of the whole world we're in. And we're now starting to get back to something of a new normal, as they call it. And it really is a new normal because it's very different than the old normal, but there is resemblance to the old world where travel is possible for people if you're meeting the conditions required for travel. And so people are flying, people are kind of getting back out into the world. And I think that this Pegasus notion of getting too far too fast, thinking that maybe somehow things are now going to be forever on this trajectory of moving out of what we went through. It's just, there's a warning here with this direct station on Pegasus. I think we can't abandon what we've just gone through. Like with any traumatic event, we have to incorporate it and integrate it. And that sometimes requires leaving room for grief, leaving room for maybe going out to the bar, for example, or going to a social event. Like you may be feeling different, like, wow, I haven't done this in a year. This is, do I have my skills back for how to speak to people or how to be comfortable in those settings? So just give yourself a break to kind of ease into the summer. Jupiter stationing now, moving backwards. I think we will be returning to some of the things that we dealt with earlier in the year, these first 5 months of the year. So in your individual life, you have your own story for these first 5 months, but collectively, we had a winter where there was, all of those controversies and policy changes and risks, health risks, all of that stuff I think comes back. There's some likelihood that it's going to come back. So just keep that in mind. But this is the thing here, is that Jupiter starts going retrograde, but on Wednesday, and I'm coming back to this, Mercury moves direct. And I think this is a good opportunity on a smaller scale that we begin moving forward with that Mercury story. Remember, it's been since 4 May when Mercury entered Gemini. So this has been a very long process of Mercury having to deal with itself in its own home and go backwards in the house in the place that it rules in Gemini. So it's been a good opportunity, I think, but we now get to move forward towards resolution. These can be mercurial things, paperwork, forms maybe related to activity you're taking, business moving forward, job applications moving forward, your thinking, your writing, anything that's been delayed since May 4th, whatever that story is for you. It's exciting this week that can now be brought towards resolution. I'm hearing people talking about job searches, graduation. Right now we're in June, so folks may have just graduated and they're in that transition period. This is what this Mercury retrograde story could be about, for example. So it's an exciting thing about this week, even though that larger context has Jupiter moving back, and Jupiter will come back into Aquarius in late July. So we really have 1 month of Jupiter still in Pisces, Mercury moving forward, things sort of moving forward, no eclipses. And I think this month of July is a nice opportunity to get the things out of the way that you've been yearning for or pining for, or if you're going to do a little bit of traveling, get out there a little bit and explore. Do some of that test exploration to kind of see where you're at after last year. Because August and September, with Jupiter coming back to Aquarius, There might be unfinished business related to some of those, Saturnian style difficulties. And then we start getting into fall and winter, which again is respiratory illness season. So those themes, I think, come back, and we might not be as open or free to move as we are this summer, this month of July. Same as last year. Remember, summer was quite open, and then we came back into the fall in the Northern Hemisphere, and things, were shut back down. So I don't want to, outright predict it, but I would not at all be surprised that if we didn't have a return to that kind of more restricted world. So use this July as an opportunity. Direct Mercury, Jupiter in Pisces still. The sun will be in Cancer. Well, I'm going to talk all about that here in the next slide, so I'll wait to talk about that. But basically, the sun will make a trine by sign to Jupiter in Pisces from Cancer. Very nice energy. So I'm loving July as maybe the best month to kind of capture some of that initiative. Travel really is what I'm thinking about, because we're going to be free to do it largely. So, okay, the other thing I want to say is, actually it was the next thing on the slide here, the sun trine Jupiter. It perfects this week. That happens on the same day that Mercury stations direct on Wednesday, and it's sign based into the end of July. So my thinking when I was writing these notes is the same as my thinking when I'm speaking to you, probably because I've already prepared this talk, but it's the order of events here. And then Venus in Leo comes in at the end of the week here on Sunday, early in the morning, and that might kick off. You've heard this meme out there, hot girl summer. I like that meme. I think it might be a song. Someone out there may know. But, it's hot in the summer, it's Leo season, but you have the two planets that signify relationships and sensuality with others and that physical expression of love. Those planets are coming together. They're going to be traveling together here in Leo. So I think there is a sense of a time, like I was just delineating with July, traveling, moving around, connecting, meeting new people, parties. I see stuff on my timelines all over Europe and in America. Gatherings are happening, music, So this is a time where maybe there is a renewed sense of connection through relationship. And wherever you're at, if you're partnered, maybe you go out with your partner and you're able to enjoy some of that dancing or singing or, the kind of touch that we can do in public. And if you're not partnered, maybe you're out socializing and looking for a partner if you want that. If you don't want that, maybe you're just out socializing, enjoying people, enjoying the connection that we have with people and that kind of sharing passion in a communal space. That's what that Venus and Mars can do when they're together. And then of course, I have with limits here because this is all opposite Saturn and Aquarius, that very strong Saturn. And that's what I think this is going to overhang us this summer. As the news starts coming out of maybe the need for restrictions, the so-called need, that this is going to be a narrative. I'm already seeing it, and I'm not going to talk too in detail about the news. This is not really what this channel is about, and of course, if I start bringing that stuff in more aggressively, there's always risks that I speak about it in a way that risks my channel. I just don't want to go there. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. Basically, respiratory illness season's coming back. We're seeing it in the news. There's an increase potentially. There's a risk for that, and I think that is going to overhang this month of July. And I wouldn't be surprised, like I've already said, if there's some closures. And it's not just me. There's many astrologers coming out and saying Jupiter will come back into Aquarius. It's going to time new closures. And I'm just agreeing with that delineation. It's pretty plain, right in your face. But in particular, this opposition with Saturn and Aquarius, while you have Mars and Venus there, I think it's hanging over the fun. And that's why there's limits to the hot girl summer. And you might even, depending on where you're at with your comfort level. I know a lot of people out there aren't comfortable. They're being very careful if they were to go to a show or a dance club, for example. And I honor that. I'm not, I think that is everybody's is figuring out their comfort level with how to engage in this moment, and erring on a cautious side. That might be part of the limitations, your limitations for how you want to engage this summer. So. Just know that the symbolism is calling for kind of not heedless abandon into this idea that things are fixed and that we're not going to return to some of the difficulties of the last year. So, okay, let me come back now to the next slide. This is the Cancer Ingress detail that I wanted to talk about here. This is the chart that's key for mundane analysis. back in our tradition, as ancient as you go. Really in medieval this develops, but you have it in Ptolemy. I've got some videos on my channel that talk about the, I don't remember which one, I'll try to link it here, but I go into this to Ptolemy and how he talks about these ingresses of the sun as very important markers for the astrology and how we predict that season. So all of the summer, that's what the Cancer Ingress is. It marks the beginning of summer. This is the chart of the summer. And it's different in every capital. Really, if you wanted to analyze this, you would bring it up for whatever country you're living in and that capital of that country, and to see how the themes might fit to your individual country. I've got it here for Tirana, for Albania. But we can extrapolate more generally and just look at some of the relationships in the chart and maybe make a more general delineation for the collective. And that's what I've done here. The thing about this chart, it's striking. You've got a moon in fallen in Scorpio, one of the difficult places for the moon that can imply woundedness or trauma or deep feelings that are uncomfortable. But the thing about this moon, it's in a T-square with the two so-called malefics from the tradition, Mars and Saturn. So it's a sign-based T-square, but even more difficult is that it's what we call enclosed. It's besieged. The medievals called it besiegement. The Hellenistic translators have called it enclosure. And so the moon is separating from that square from Mars and applying to a square to Saturn within 7 degrees of an orb on either side. It's very, very challenging in this ingress. So it's so, I mean, I mentioned this stuff. I've stopped mentioning malefic enclosures on my channel as a rule, just because I don't have that much time. And I will talk about hard aspects for sure. So you'll see me analyzing the moon, and I try to avoid, when I do electional astrology, the moon applying to or separating from malefics. We call that carrying the light of the planet or applying to a planet. Those energies, it's not that they're bad. I mean, I talked all about that in some recent videos. It's just that from a purely electional perspective, if we can kind of, you want to eliminate a potential difficulty, and that's why we do that. But here it's almost the deepest symbolism I've seen of difficulty in a while in an ingress chart. So this is part of why I was saying what's going to overhang the summer, that month of July. I do think there's some real challenges overhanging the collective. I'll just say it, and I think we're here in it. And this, you can probably feel it. I mean, you guys and people and gals and everyone are out there connected to the global mind and the collective unconscious. There's challenges right now, economic challenges, stock market's teetering, Bitcoin crashed. We've got these, respiratory illnesses shifting and changing, I'll say that may be on the horizon. So we're dealing here with some real heavy energetic and a heavy energetic. And I just have here, so challenge for the collective, there's wounds that are still active. I don't want to discount that. I think we're dealing with collective trauma from last year. The complete change of society on the turn of a dime. Trauma can traumatize the collective. We have a collective psyche that is still grappling with severe trauma right now. And we're individually grappling with it. I know I am. My life, all of us out there, it's upheaval. Think about your plans in 2019. Think about where you are in 2021. I guarantee you it's radically different than maybe you could have ever imagined. For like 90% of you all. And it was a great opportunity. I know for me, my life changed for the better. I love the life I have now. So there's amazingly great things about it, but it's still traumatic to have to deal with like making decisions in the moment and on the fly and the uncertainty and not knowing, and family members getting sick or health decisions that people are having to make. All of that's highly traumatic, let alone the normal traumas of life that we're having to go through, right? The normal loves and breakups and new jobs and those life hurdles that everybody's moving through. So I think we're dealing with, this summer may be part of healing those collective traumas. They may be re-triggered. And I have here society versus individual will. Why I have that is that this is the Aquarius-Leo axis, where Mars is in Leo, Saturn is in Aquarius. That moon is in Scorpio, is sort of the woundedness there. But the great thing, and this is why I was saying mixed testimony at the beginning of the talk, look at the water trine in this chart. The moon gets extreme support from Venus in Cancer, overcoming that moon from earlier in zodiacal order. And then Jupiter overcomes Venus. And so you have this kind of wheel of trine from the benefic planets to be there and support the moon. So I think there's some great opportunities for truth to be accessible. Love. And this is the thing, we connect in our woundedness. That's how we actually can love people. That's what intimacy is. You say, all right, you share the true self, and here's my wounds, and love me anyway. And then that person says, I love you, and they create space for you to feel your pain. To me, that's true intimacy and love. They say, in to see me. You let someone in to see you. That's intimacy. And that's what the great power of the moon in Scorpio is. But it's that threshold that can be great, challenging and trying to get to a place of deep intimacy. I have here, there's beauty and suffering. I think I'm speaking more here about the Venus here. Great art sometimes comes from the pains of life. It's born out of that deep truth of suffering. And being honest with how we feel. I think that's where I'm going with this Jupiter and Venus, that there's a certain sense as we're dealing with the T-square and the trauma and the collective trauma and the uncertainty this summer, there's some real truth in just sharing how we feel. It's good art, good life is being honest. Saying, all right, I'm scared. Yeah, what's going to happen this summer, whatever we're dealing with collectively or individually, that truth and that wisdom can come from truth and expressions of that. So, and where's Mercury? Mercury is retrograde in this chart in Gemini. Maybe there's some struggle there with communication. It's about to station direct. So I think that Mercury isn't the worst Mercury, and it's strong in Gemini. So maybe it's less about communicating through verbalization, and it's more expressing through art or through epiphany and higher idea. This feels to be more like an inner truth, an inner honesty, rather than like sharing it. We know the world's crazy right now. You start sharing ideas, it's just going to be debates, and sometimes that's not the best way to express truth through the word. It's an amazing strategy to do it. Writing is one of the most powerful things. But this chart shows me maybe it's more of a feeling, right? Water signs are emotion, so it's feeling the truth of a situation. And it's okay, let me keep going. The one other thing I wanted to mention, this lunar mansion where the moon is, I always look at the lunar mansions when the moon is enclosed, whether positively or negatively, in a difficult way or in an uplifting way. These lunar mansions they're kind of a secret expression, one that's maybe not as popular, but I find them to be very, very potent, and they're connected back to, the old, 1,500 years or more, or even older maybe. But it's an old way to look at the zodiac. It's a very powerful way to understand zodiac signs, really. So let me come back. It's rough transits, like I said, but this website, Lunarium, it's wonderful. It quotes a lot of those texts on each lunar mansion, and I love their summaries. So I've just put their summary here. This lunar mansion is the 18th lunar mansion, Al-Kalb. And this is where the moon will be in the ingress, in that malefic enclosure. So it's good for building, farming, and treatment of the stomach, and for exposing enemies. But, and this is where I was thinking that truth, that's the exposure of the enemy, whether it's a person or a thing or even just the enemy inside, right? Sometimes our delusion, our trauma lives there. I don't want to it's not like this, like the trauma needs to be integrated, obviously. So we have to kind of love it ultimately and see it and incorporate it. But it is that exposure, that's what the truth is. You feel it and you expose it here. So, and this might be on the collective. I mean, I know every week now I see emails have been released, new studies, new ideas coming out to challenge maybe the orthodoxy. All kinds of, in this quick shifting landscape of media and of ideas that are part of the collective justification for things. That's always changing. Maybe this implies there will be some downfalls for so-called quote-unquote enemies, however you want to use that. Let's hope, right? Let's hope truth comes to the forefront. It's the ongoing battle, right? Between good and evil, truth, light, wisdom, love, and kind of people that are seeking to maybe not come from that place on a more of a collective level. I think that might come into the fore here this summer. And remember, the summer lasts until September. So we've got June, July, August, September. It's 3 months, that late September, that fall equinox. So we have a 3-month period with this chart, this energy. A lot can happen. August and September are big times. Think about in the world what's happened in August and September. Stock markets can sometimes go wobbly in September. It's one of the most popular months for that. You know, September 11, you know, just to throw that. So that's a summer event. A lot can happen in the summer. But I think here, I'm thinking about more the interpersonal way to access this symbolism, the healing that comes from honest appraisal. There's the movie Good Will Hunting, the therapy breakthrough scene in that movie. It's a powerful, powerful thing, and that would be the exposure of enemies. The enemy was the trauma there in Will Hunting, and then Robin Williams is saying, it's not your fault, it's not your fault, it's not your fault. One of the most powerful scenes really is, and I remember breaking down in the theater. I watched that Christmas 1997 in the theater in Austin, Texas. I was young, I was a teenager, and I remember breaking down. And it just opened me up, that wound, seeing the wound come to light, and then the tears, you know, and that's water signs. Those are tears, that water that comes out of our eyes, you know. And I think there's something here about breakthroughs that can come from the feeling, the honest feeling of the traumas that we've gone through collectively or individually. I see that here for this summer period. And it might be good to get out if you're able to travel. I mean, go to a beach or go somewhere where you can be maybe alone. And if you're feeling or processing, giving yourself space to do that. Around water, maybe. I'm just throwing out the water. So I'm living near water, so I'm going to maybe plan to get out near the beach at some point. I don't know if I'll do it in these summer months, but I may. You can follow me on Instagram if you want to see that. I post a lot of pictures around where I am. It's not an astrology Instagram, really. So, okay, let me move through. So that's this really, so you see how heavy duty this is. I mean, it's serious stuff. It's right here in the symbolism, and we're getting ready to cross this ingress moment, Sun into Cancer, that captures this. It's like a stamp of energy. It's almost like a tattoo on us for that period. So, okay, let's push and let's move. What comes on Thursday? So that ingress happens on Monday. Then we're here now on Thursday. Remember, Mercury stations direct on Wednesday. The moon is making a trine to Jupiter on Wednesday. And then here we get Thursday, we get the full moon. And I should have had that on that first slide, I didn't, but I have it here. The full moon in Capricorn. And the thing about this, it's an exile for the moon. It's the place where the moon is exiled. So the moon is already struggling here, having, you know, body wants comfort, Saturn wants isolation and austerity. So it's already, we're dealing with discomfort is the word that I came up here. But this happens every year. We get a full moon in Capricorn every year around the solstices, the winter solstice or the summer solstice, depending on where, if you're in the southern or northern. And we get a new moon in Capricorn around the 6 months where we're in Capricorn season in the northern hemisphere. So there's something here about this discomfort, the physical discomfort in the body that can come with the extremes, the seasonal extremes of weather. And how do we adjust with our bodies and our home life to the new season? If you have extreme heat, you're gonna have to open the windows. You may be turning on AC. I haven't done that yet. I'm this season, I'm going with the no sheet or just the thin sheet model. I keep my windows open. This apartment has good airflow, but it's an adjustment. I was feeling it last night. Man, this is too hot. And actually some sleep issues came up. This is the kind of stuff that we deal with these extremes. And it's symbolized here with the moon having to confront its exile during this extreme moment. But look, Venus and Jupiter look on this full moon. And so it's kind of like the Cancer Ingress where you have the moon with that great water trine with Venus and Jupiter. In this full moon moment, you get an opposition from Venus and a sextile from Jupiter by sign. So we get a lot of help here. And Mars and Saturn aren't a part of this full moon, except Saturn, of course, rules it. But there's no aspect. So, and Saturn's strong in Aquarius. And this is how you want Saturn. You want Saturn sometimes to maybe not be an aspect if you're having it rule something. And you want it strong, but maybe not an aspect, according to my view. Especially with the moon, as you're timing the moon. So we get that here. So there's really a lot to like. I think about the limits of our environment. There's only so much time in the day, for example. Sometimes this great principle of limitation birthing things. Limitation being generative. And like for me, I was laying there without that sheet last night, and it was kind of cool just to lay, pun intended. I mean, it cooled me down, but it changed my relationship to my sleep, which can be so routinized. And I think it created some dream states that were a little bit different. But I think shifting around and doing things differently can open up different ways to view reality and move us forward. I liked the generative quality of that limitation. Let me come through here to, in this next slide, you know, limitation can be powerful, pleasurable, beautiful, paradoxically abundant. It's that, again, that generative feature of limits. Stark art. I have here Rothko, you know, look at his art. It's just a few squares on a canvas, sometimes the same color, and it just takes you in. I remember being at the Rothko Chapel in Houston there, just sitting staring at those canvases. And so, you know, limitation is not a bad thing. I think the art side of it comes in because we're dealing with Capricorn, which is an earth sign. Venus does rule Capricorn by triplicity, by day triplicity. So there is a sense of the Venus working here in this nights, these signs of the night, you know, of Capricorn. You know, but grief is generative, right? If you don't have what you want, sometimes that challenges us to make do and to invent. You know, these meals, I've been going to the grocery store for my diet, trying to just get a little bit healthier. And these meals, I mean, it's so cheap to make, like a simple pasta. They have the best pasta here. I'm near Italy, so I've got all this Italian pasta. You can make a pasta, it's simple, and it just the simple ingredients, the austerity of pasta, you might think. And it can be some of the best foods that you're gonna eat. So that's what I'm thinking here. And let me see here, what one doesn't have accentuates what one does have. That's what the Saturnian kind of separation from abundance and from materiality can bring. It accentuates what we do have. And beauty is everywhere always. That's the thing I wanted to key in. I mean, you can be stripped down, maybe with really nothing you like, simple clothes, and you can just look at the hand. I mean, just look at the hand. Look at all those lines. I don't ever look at this close. But these beautiful shapes and lines, right in the hand. I mean, we are a work of art, and this is free. I mean, you're born with the hand. You know, and it's freely available every moment of every day to sit and be in awe of just like even the wrist. Look at that, how it can move and the power of it. So I don't want to get too tripped out here on that, but this is the theme with the benefics making nice aspects to the moon while the moon is full and here ruled in an exile in this Saturn ruled sign. Let me push forward I told you there's a lot here, but this is the fixed star. There's one fixed star very close to the full moon. It's called Polis. It's a star in the Sagittarius constellation in the bow. So this centaur has a bow, and so there's something here about warfare. Robson talks about this fixed star as being of the nature of Jupiter and Mars. Gives success, high ambition, martial desires, horsemanship, keen perception. I think about the perception as being key because you have the bow. Its purpose is to help you steady as you're looking for a target. So there's a perception quality here to this bow. And of course, Jupiter, I mean, if you're riding out with a bow and looking to expand into new places, that's I think where the Jupiter resonance comes in. And I'm just going to bring this back. It's high ambition as we move into summer. I'm sure a lot of you are excited. You're doing things. I see my friends on Instagram, some of them eating at restaurants for the first time, and it's an exciting time. And with Mercury direct, you know, it's even more exciting. So there's this perception feature, I think, does bring Mercury back in. And I will say Mercury does rule the full moon, this syzygy, by term. So there is a kind of a perception feature to this. And yeah, I mean, maybe it's just thinking about everything I talked about earlier, about the risks of maybe being too over exuberant and just making sure you're seeing clearly as you're moving out into your Jupiterian expansion for this month of July and this summer. I'm just going to move here. This is the last slide, but we have, actually there was a slide before here. So care this summer is called for, moving back into social life, taking baby steps. That can be the perception, just looking where you're stepping. That's a simple rule, especially if you're out into new places. You know, if you're barefoot, you're going to walk, you're going to be careful. If you're walking like in nature or a forest, you always want to make sure you're not going to step on things. I like to do it even when you're on the sidewalk because you don't want to step on, you know, trash or dog waste. So, okay. This is So taking baby steps, being clear about the inner life, about the expectations. These are things that are advisable, but the bow is steadying the aim. And when you have a bow, you're not just shooting immediately, right? It allows you to wait and delay the shot. That's why I think the perception and this kind of care and concern is a big theme of this moment and of this talk. All right, let me move to the last slide. This is my transit of the week, the Sagittarius Moon. This happens on Wednesday, as Mercury is stationing direct on Wednesday, as the Sun and Jupiter are going to perfect that trine. Wednesday's a good day, I think, this week. It's going to be some positive vibes going down on Wednesday, but the Sagittarius Moon is not a small part of that. It's a big part of that. The moon is waxing here. It's the final stage of that waxing moon before it moves into the full moon that comes the next day. So you're getting those final moments of growth of this lunar cycle, this lunation cycle. And remember, we had eclipse season, and now this is the official final end of eclipse season will be Thursday, because we get a new syzygy to reset the energy. And then we'll have that 2 weeks that's defined by the full moon in Capricorn. So we get the end of eclipse season, yay, yay. This is that kind of final moments. It might be still lingering a little bit, but those changes that it propelled in you and in your life, maybe it's here to kind of enjoy that. I like a Sagittarius moon here, ruled by Jupiter in Pisces, trining the sun, trining by sign, Venus and Cancer. I think Wednesday's a great day to just get out into your community, go read some books. Someone told me about a bookstore here that's got a publishing house and a coffee shop. I think I may try to go there Wednesday, maybe find a book. I'm reading a lot of books, but maybe find something or talk to some people that are into the literary scene here, something I really like. We're shaking off eclipse season, shifting your worldviews. You know, what intuitively feels correct? Is there a teacher or a set of ideas that came to you during this eclipse season, or something new you're discovering that maybe this is a time on Wednesday to kind of saturate or to go deeper with that? Remember, it's effectively infinite. Ideas are effectively infinite. Books, I mean, when did we start publishing? Gutenberg, what was that? 15th, 16th century, it starts really flowering. Think about all the ideas that have been published and that we've lost. I mean, you could find writers and thinkers all over the world. So it's effectively infinite in the sense we don't have enough time to read all the books, even if we started now. So maybe you'll find a teacher or find some new ideas during this time. All right, that's the weekly astrology. Shifting now to the weekly tarot. I'm going to move through this quickly. I know it's been a lot already. And I guess the themes, you know, being careful but expanding, this enjoying July, being aware that this summer has some difficult symbolism, and we're coming, you know, so those are sort of the themes I wanted to summarize there while I'm getting this first card. Let's get the first card. We've got it here. This is, I believe, is going to be the King of Earth, the Earth King. That great Earth King, which would be the King of Diamonds. And where is that? Oh, let me let me just get this. While I'm talking about the King of Diamonds, if it is that, and I'm pretty sure it is, we're corresponding here to Capricorn. My quick access menu on this computer, it dropped the folder where that is, so I have to get it in another way. But we've got, that's the King would be Capricorn. I like in my system, when I correspond the kings, I like them as being the initiating energies, the cardinal energies. That's how I do correspondence with my playing card decks and with my cartomancy. And so let's go here. So actually, no, I was wrong about that, completely wrong. We talked all about, I'm not gonna even go there. We have the Capricorn full moon, so we've talked about that. Let me come here. This is the favor card, Venus and Virgo. And this is one of the best cards when you talk about tarot tradition and tarology and tarologists. And this has a great, it's just one of the great cards, favor, abundance. This implies you see depictions of this with people with money and people gathering together. It's a card that might mean, I think Crowley calls it gain, I believe. But we're dealing here with abundance. And all I'm gonna say, it's Virgo, so it's ruled by Mercury and it's Venus and Virgo. I'm thinking here about our Venus and Cancer moment. There's been some wonderful exchanges recently with the moon and Venus, the moon being in Libra and Venus in Cancer, that mutual reception. And then before that, the moon was actually in Cancer with Venus. So we've had a lot going on with the Cancer energies and the lunar side, and Venus has played a big role in some of the real positive transits recently. So maybe looking back and just expressing some gratitude. Yeah, I've been having great times at work, or cool people that I met online, or just that love, that connection that I think has been available to us. Whatever it is, however small, we can point to that as being working in our favor, you know. And this whole year, the big story is the freedom of cardinal signs. And so you do have Venus being ruling Libra, so you've got these Libra transits coming later in the year with Venus there. Going to be some great astrology. You've got the moon's transits in Cancer have been really open for all kinds of electional work. So we're dealing with that great positive cardinal time that I think we can be grateful for. This is the card of that immediate past. I'm going to move here. I don't want to dwell on this too long. We could talk about this for an hour. And I'm working on an essay actually about some of these cards. I'll be writing one about this. So I will pontificate on this and maybe have a whole video on this card at some point. I'm going to try to move though. I don't want to do that in this talk. All right, the second card. We have the, here we go. We have the, again, force, lust. This card has come up over and over and over again, hasn't it, in my recent videos. I mean, this is the Leo season. So remember, Venus comes into Leo this week, and it adds that dose of femininity, quote unquote, if you want to use that. I think about what that can imply is just more the tactility, more concerns for beauty, slower pace. I think we need that with Mars being opposite Saturn, and that kind of that burst of energy that Mars and Leo has brought here. Now we get Venus to join, and so think about how you can soften as your summer gets very dynamic, because it will. I'm certain. As you're out moving into the world now in ways you haven't in a long time, think about others. Think about, actually, you may need to restrain some of your tendencies. That's what I love, the symbolism of this card. You know, this character, this woman is holding the lion. And this, I think, does fit with the themes of care, concern, the perception of that bow of Polis, the star Polis, Jupiter going backwards now, the care, the concern that we might need to bring. So, you know, you might want to watch getting too just, I'm going to just unleash and feel good and go party. You know, that might be an attitude to kind of acknowledge the positive behind that of just wanting to enjoy life, but maybe figuring out how to channel that in a way that's going to protect you and be constructive. That's what I would say here. I talked all about that Venus-Mars conjunction earlier. This is the hot girl summer card. Perfect, right? Hot girl. And then Leo, corresponding to Leo, that's summer. That's the fixed sign during the summer. All right, that is the weekly tarot and the weekly astrology. Have a wonderful week ahead. You can go to my website, sjanderson144/readings. Schedule a reading with me. I love to read. And I do have a Patreon now. I haven't been plugging it in my videos, but you can support me there if you're so inclined. I do appreciate the support greatly. It does help me keep going and help me continue to make videos. And that Patreon, it's designed to just support me. It's not, there's no special offering, or there's no club that I'm creating, or back end or private thing. All of my content, I really want it to be freely available, because I really relate to the spirit of that. Now, if I publish a book at some point, you may have to purchase that. But this is kind of freely available content, and I would appreciate your support if you're so inclined. You can find me a link to that in the description. And you have a wonderful, wonderful week ahead. Enjoy the Cancer Ingress. Enjoy summer being finally here, and enjoy eclipse season being over officially. I'll talk to you really soon.